Hi, this is the last example in proving trig identities. We are going to prove cotangent square over 1 plus cosecant x equal to that right side. So let's start. This could be done in different ways. One of the ways, we're going to substitute cotangent square with cosine squared over sine squared according to the identity that says cotan equal cosine over sine. And this is identity 2 in our personalized identity sheet. Divided by 1 plus, we're going to substitute the cosecant with 1 over sine. Now, if we look on the denominator, we see it kind of messy. So how about we make a common denominator on the bottom? So we're going to recopy the top as is. And that denominator, we're going to make it look nice. The common factor, there's no common factor, so that's why we multiply top and bottom by sine x. So the common denominator will be sine x. Sine x plus 1 over sine x. We get to a point where we see two fractions. This is when we're going to remember the keep, change, flip trick. So we're going to keep the top. We're going to change the division into multiplication. And we're going to flip the bottom. So it's going to be sine x over sine plus 1. Now you might ask, how is that useful? Here's the proof. So we can simplify the sine squared with the sine and get rid of that. So that way we are left with cosine squared over sine, and we have 1 over sine x plus 1. Now this, for a purpose in my mind, we're gonna change it into 1 plus sine instead of sine plus 1, which is exactly the same thing. And if you review the previous video, we always look for special cases. I want to use a special case. So I have 1 plus sine. I'm going to multiply it by 1 minus sine. And whatever I do on top, I have to do on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 1 minus sine and 1 minus sine. We're going to distribute those two. I'm going to take care of them. This, we can change it a little bit if we change the cosine squared into cosine times cosine. We can see the cotan in it. And the reason why we want it, because I look at the right side and I say, I need a cotangent to show. Now let's take care of the two fractions right here. Distributing the 1 is easy. And distributing the bottom is a squared minus b squared. And now we can change the 1 minus sine squared into cosine squared. So we will be left with cosine over sine, that's a cotan, times cosine, times 1 minus sine, and over cosine squared. Now I can see another chance to simplify across. So I will be left only with cosine on the denominator. And we have cotan on the outside. So here's what we're going to do now. I look at the final product and I see a minus in between, but I see two separate functions. So this gives me a hint that I need to separate the fractions. So it's going to be 1 over cosine minus sine over cosine. And are we allowed to do that? Let's review the algebra skill that allows us to do that. 5 minus 2 over 3 is equal to 5/3 minus 2/3. And this is true because this is a common denominator. If I want to separate them, I can. That's what I did here. I separated them. I was left with cosine and 1 on top, separate from the sine. And why did I separate them? Because I looked at the final product and I had two separated trig identities. So cotangent x, 1 over cosine is secant, and sine over cosine is a tangent of x. And if we look at what we need, we just proved it. Let's quickly recap what we did. We changed cotangent to cosine over sine, and cosecant is 1 over sine. We made a common denominator on the bottom. Then we had to keep change flip. We simplified. We saw that 1 plus sign pattern, so we multiplied it by 1 minus sign. That allowed us to simplify the cosines, and we split the fraction. And we got to prove it.